Well, hello there. This is Veronica Armstrong, life and leadership coach and founder of Leadership Life Support. Today, we're going to be talking about personal development. But before I get started, I wanted to share with you some stats that I came across in a blog that I was reading the other day. It completely supports why having this conversation is necessary. It says that 50% of senior leaders believe that their talent development efforts don't adequately build critical skill or organizational capability. From a study that where they sampled 4,300 workers, 74% feel that they are not achieving their full potential due to lack of development efforts. And 87% of millennials feel or say that professional development or career growth opportunities are important to them. But the scary stat is that 83% of organizations say that it is important to develop leaders at all levels, but only 5% have implemented development programs for their leaders. So with statistics like that, it's critically important that we take our personal development seriously and we take it into our own hands. So let's talk about personal development, what it is and why it matters. Personal development is simply taking responsibility to develop your abilities and improve yourself. That's it. It is not rocket science. You can do that by reading books. You can learn a new language. You can take up a new hobby, such as golf or yoga or anything like that that expands your horizons. And the reason that personal development is important is because it allows you to control your life. It also allows you to create the life you want. And what I mean by that is as you learn new skills and abilities, those that make you happy, you can incorporate them into your life day to day, and you can be happier. You can also improve your self-awareness. And the reason you're improving your self-awareness is because as you learn new skills and abilities, you're learning about what you're good at, what you're not so good at, and what your strengths and weaknesses are, and what you like and dislike. It also makes you a better person because you're broadening your horizons. And one last point, which I think is the most important, personal development also helps your personal growth, or excuse me, your professional growth, which in turn increases your earning potential. So let's talk about self-development as it relates to leadership. As you progress from one level of leadership to the next, each role requires a different set of skills and abilities. And if you're going to make a smooth transition and if you're going to be successful at that next level, it's important that you have developed those skills and abilities that are necessary for that level. Because if you don't, a variety of things can happen, such as decreased morale, decreased performance, increased attrition or turnover, and it can even result in your customers having a bad customer experience. So here's an example of a leadership transition where the set of skills that you have in one position varies from the set of skills in another position. So if you go from being an individual contributor to being a supervisor, as an individual contributor, your responsibility is just managing yourself. That's it. You're just managing yourself and your performance, which is pretty easy to do. However, when you transition into a supervisor role, now you're beginning to require a different set of skills because you have to manage performance through others. You're not going to be managing your own performance in that way. You're managing performance through others. And it requires a different set of skills, such as communication skills, relationship building, planning and developing, and decision making. Another leadership transition is going from supervisor to manager. So here's the thing, the transition between supervisor and manager, not as difficult, but the transition between individual contributor to supervisor, much more difficult and likely the most difficult transition you're going to make in your leadership career. And the reason that going from supervisor to manager isn't as difficult is because you're already developing some of the same skills that you need in that manager position, such as managing performance through others. So it's an easier transition, but it's still a transition that requires a slightly different set of skills. And the reason being is because you're going to be involved in talent development and selection, which is really important. You're also going to be involved in the deployment of resources, making sure that you are putting resources in the right place or the right places in order to achieve whatever your objectives are. So the scope of responsibility is a bit more broad. However, it's going to be a little bit easier of a transition, but you still need a different set of skills. So engaging in some personal development to make sure that you're ready for that transition is going to be important. So let me go back. I just want to remind everyone those statistics that I read earlier. 74% of workers feel that they are not achieving their full potential at work because of the lack of self-development opportunities. And 83% of organizations say that they believe that developmental programs for leaders at all levels are important. However, only 5% of them have implemented programs. That is a scary statistic. And it's a clear indication that we have got to take our own development seriously. If we want to improve our lives, improve our career, improve our marketability, and increase our earning potential, we are going to have to take our development into our own hands. And I'm going to tell you what you can start doing today to start taking your development into your own hands. So here are the 5 steps that you can take today to take your development into your own hands. Number 1, identify those competencies or those skills and or abilities that are needed for that next role that you're looking for. If you're not looking for a specific role, then just identify what skills and abilities you want to develop. Next, assess your skill in these areas. And what I mean by that is understand your strengths, your weaknesses, and your gaps. And your gaps really means where you are today versus where you need to be for that particular role or for whatever you want to develop. I would also ask others, if you're going to be doing it professionally, I would definitely ask your manager and your peers. If you're already in a management role, ask your direct reports. You want to get feedback because you don't want to do this from an inside out perspective. And what that means is taking solely what you think about your skills and abilities and just kind of going on that. If you have others around you who can give you honest feedback, it's important because their feedback matters. So get a very good understanding of your skills, your abilities, your strengths, your weaknesses, and your gaps. The third thing you need to do is to create an action plan. And all that is identifying what are those things you want to work on, what are the results that you want to get, and what are the action steps that you need to take in order to get there. Once you understand that, then identify the resources that you need to help you achieve those goals, whatever they might be. If it means getting a mentor, then do that. If it means reading a book, then do that. If it means taking a class, then do that. Ultimately, you have to identify what resources and what tools are available to help you get from point A to point Z. And then finally, execute on the plan. Once you've identified everything that you need to do, it is important and it is up to you to execute on that plan. And I'll tell you, very early in my career, and it's something I still do today, what I found to be very, very helpful is once I had my action plan created, it stayed on my desk every single day. I reviewed it every single day. And as a matter of fact, I updated it every so often, probably every quarter, to make sure that I was continuing to make progress. If you do that, what you're going to notice is you're going to get better and better, and you're going to be recognized for the effort that you're putting forth in order to develop your own skills. So we are at the end of today's discussion, but before I wrap up, I have a couple things I want to say. So now you have a very good idea of what self-development is and why it matters. I've also given you 5 steps that you can take today in order to start taking your development in your own hands. But what I didn't give you is I didn't give you a lot of detail on the types of activities you can engage in to improve your skills. However, I have an answer for you. I have created a guide called How to Become a Great Leader that you can download. So if you're watching me on Instagram, go to my website or go to YouTube. If you're watching me on YouTube, go below the video. If you're on Facebook, go to my website, download the guide called How to Become a Great Leader. It's going to give you much more information on self-development, why it's important, and the types of activities that you can engage in order to improve your skills. And if you're not following me on social media, follow me on Instagram, follow me or subscribe to my YouTube channel, and follow me on Facebook, because for the remainder of the month, I'm going to be talking about the transitions, 2 of which we talked about today, the leadership transitions, and the types of challenges that aspiring and early career leaders, they encounter as they make these transitions from one position to another. We're going to be talking about those challenges and the types of activities that you can engage in order to make the transition smooth. So come back next week, and thank you for joining me.